We are live. We'll call the meeting of the Committee of the Whole, Planning Administration to order, and I would ask those in attendance to rise as you are able for the reading of the invocation. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who served our community and who are no longer with us so that we can continue to do the work we must in their memory. Please be seated. Councillor Samuel has sent in her regrets for this evening. And Mr. Clerk, has the roll been taken?
Roll call has been taken.
Okay, thank you. Members, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for anything on tonight's agenda? I see none. Separation. Are there any anyone wishing to separate a consent or a consideration? Councillor Hunt.
(7.1.6).
I neglected to say 7.1.5 is automatically separated as there's a delegation speaking to it. Any further separations? Councillor McCurry?
Thank you, Chair Celeste. Yes, 7.1.1, which is the major sports teams item, 7.1.2, which is the lane closing item, and 7.1.3, which is the license agreement.
Any further? I believe, Mr. Mayor, you had a couple you wanted to separate. Have they already been separated?
They've been separated.
You're good? Okay. Sorry. Councillor Van Tilburg.
If I didn't miss it, 7.1.6.
It's been separated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Nothing further? Okay, Councillor Sicoli, I understand you have the motion to approve all items for consideration and consent that were not separated for discussion purposes.
That I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Sullivan, that all items for consideration or consent not separated for discussion purposes be approved.
Thank you. We'll now call a vote on the items not separated for discussion, but before, could the clerk please read the titles of the items that are subject to the vote?
Thank you, Chair, through you. The items subject to the vote are the following. 7.1.4, sign by law amendment regarding billboard signs. Item 7.1.7, National Housing Co-Investment Funding for Renovation, Repair, and Renewal. Item 7.1.8, condolence procedure. 7.2.1, memorandum of understanding with Lansdowne Children's Center. 7.2.2, minutes. The motion carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor are as follows. Councillor Venturborg, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCurry, Slash, Caputo, Sullivan, Sicoli, Mayor Davis. Noting that Councillor Samuel is absent.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. There are no statutory public hearings on tonight's agenda, but there is a delegation and presentation. But prior to the delegation, I'd like to remind those in the meeting today that the following rules of decorum as set forth in the city's procedural bylaw apply. No person shall display or any sign, banner, or placard in the meeting room other than materials that, in the opinion of the chair, are legitimate audiovisual aids necessary in connection with any presentation to be made to council. All persons present shall use polite and respectful language and shall refrain from the use of any language or making of any gesture that is disrespectful or offensive. All persons addressing council shall speak only on the subject in debate and shall not speak on any other subject. And no person shall applaud participants in debate or engage in conversation or behavior that may disrupt the proceedings of the meeting. As I said, we have one registered delegation for tonight's meeting, and it's regarding the community physician recruitment 2023 program and 2024 action plan. So I would like to now ask, and I apologize for your last name. I will use your first name if that's okay. Levany and Sandra Voss and Kristen Collin from the Family Physician Recruitment Task Force to please come forward and speak to item 7.1, which is the physician recruitment program for 23 and the 24 action plan. And you have 10 minutes to present, inclusive of questions. Time permitting, there will be questions from members of the committee.
Thank you.
When you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you very much. It's an honor again to be here. I can't believe a year's gone by, and we are here with our annual update and a request to pursue this very valuable work that is taking tremendous effort these days. My name is Sandra Voss, and as the chair of the Physician Task Force, and I have brought with me Lebané Numekavor, who's the Director of Medical Affairs, as well as Kirsten Collin, who is our recruitment person. Our committee, as you see, is Sandra, myself, Jim Steele, Councillor Rose Sicoli, Mayor David Bailey, Primary Care Council Representative Dr. Scott Elliott, Lebané, and Kirsten. So basically, before I turn it over, I would just like to say thank you again to the City of Brantford and the Brant Community Healthcare System, which we have partnered for the last 20 years. We have received fundings. We started out with recruiting at a budget of $51,000 in 2002. It was increased to $110,000 in 2009, and it has not been increased since, despite inflation and significant changes to the healthcare environment. We are no longer receiving funds as we did back in 2002 as a rural and underserviced county and city, and I would like to turn it over to Lebané to explain why it has changed.
Thanks, Sandra. So I think one of the things to really highlight to start everything out is really to say that unfortunately physician recruitment across the country has changed drastically in the last year alone. So we are currently in what is essentially a physician recruitment crisis. For our area specifically, I can say that, prior to 2023, we would lose an average of 1 to 2 family physicians from the area per year. This year alone, we've actually lost 5 family physicians who have already left, either retiring or moving to other areas to practice as well, or going to other work to do hospitalist work. In addition to those 5 who have already left, I have an additional 4 who have already reached out to me who are looking to retire in the next 1 to 2 years. In terms of our update to date, we have recruited a total of 12 unique positions to the area. The majority of these positions have been for hospital work. So it also shows to the trend in the environment right now, which is the majority of family physicians aren't actually doing family practice work. They're actually looking for other opportunities, specifically in the hospital, such as hospitalist, emerge, surgical assisting. 2 of those are actually for family practice locums. And so that is helpful as it helps us to bring people into the area to help them to get acquainted to the different practices and hopefully bring them in for more long-term opportunities. Some of the progress we have made, we have been able to generate a significant amount of leads this year, over 233 leads. This is more than double our target. We have also been able to attend a lot more in-person events, which I'll be able to speak to a bit more later. As well, we organize our own family medicine residence fair for our Grand Area Six Nations family medicine residents at the hospital. So in terms of some of the strides that we have been putting in place that I think are things that we'll actually see the fruits of in the next year, we have really been targeting the recruitment of family physicians from the United States. So very recently, the CPSO has updated the requirements to allow for family physicians and other physicians trained and board certified in the States to obtain their CPSO licensure. So that has allowed us to more easily recruit physicians from the United States, as well as really support us in the repatriation of Canadians who are actually going to the States to study and actually want to come home to their communities when they're finished their training. Benefiting from this as well, we've also reached out and kind of taken advantage of some of the opportunities for recruitment in the States, including an opportunity to access some of their databases, which have led to us sending out email blasts to over 4,000 family physicians and family medicine residents in the area to help support that recruitment. We're also really putting emphasis on the relationships that we're trying to build as well. So we're really working closely with the Family Medicine Residency Program, our connection with the Brantford Norfolk Primary Care Council, as well as the OHT. And then we've also spoken to a new an alliance that we've created, which is the Southern Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance, which is basically an alliance focused on recruits, really taking advantage of international recruitment strategies to help to recruit physicians to Canada. So this stat here is very drastic, I know, and I think it's something I just wanted to highlight. It kind of speaks to the fact that, as I noted, we have a crisis across the country, but also even Ontario specifically. We estimate that by 2026, 1 in 4 Ontarians will be without a family doctor. So based on those numbers and looking at our current situation, I know this information was included in our proposal as well as our request. We estimate that currently we have around an absence of 14 to 16 family physicians that we need to actually properly service our community. The shortage across the country continues to increase. And so, part of the biggest issue is the fact that we are currently not training enough physicians to keep up with the aging population. And so an attempt has been made to increase the number of family medicine spots, but this has actually only resulted in more spots being left unfilled. Previously, the number of residency spots left unfilled for family medicine was at 6% in 2014. In 2023, that number increased all the way to 20%. In addition to that, for every 10 family medicine residents that graduate, only 2 of them are likely to go to family practice in some capacity, whether that is locum or a full-time family practice. As a result of this, we know we really have to make some drastic changes in order for us to properly make the changes to service our community. We need to change the way that we recruit and retain family physicians to the area with an increased focus on supporting our current physicians as well as providing supports for new physicians moving to the area. As a result, our budget ask this year is significantly higher than the budget ask that we have had for the last over 10 years. We are actually looking for a budget ask of $200,000 with the target of increasing to $245,000 by 2025. This is broken down as per the chart below with an increased focus, as we know, is here on some of the advertising and the international recruitment that we need to work on. And so a lot of this money will be going towards some of the recruitment events that we're going to. This will include some international ones, ones in the States, as well as some other international ones, including ones as a part of the International Recruitment Partnership. But also a key line to highlight is a line or item for recruitment supports. And so in our conversations with physicians and people we're trying to recruit, we're trying to understand what are some of the barriers that are preventing people from coming to the area and what we can do to support. We also know we are competing with other areas that are offering tens of thousands of dollars in signing bonuses in order to bring physicians to the area. And that's not something that we are support, but we need to look to see, what actually makes sense for our area and how can we actually support people to not only come to the area, but to actually want to stay in the community and service our patients, our population. And that, I think the other emphasis as well is really around the recruitment support. With the needs that we currently have, we know that we need to really ensure that we have more dedicated resources to support this work with the resources and human resources available as well. So our focus for 2024 really is going to be to enhance our focus on international recruitment, as well as figuring out and developing new models of support for family physicians to family practice, to continue to build our partnerships, especially with the Primary Care Council, and then enhance our focus on the development supports as well for our existing family physicians in the community to help us support them to be able to and want to stay in the community as well. Thank you. Open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you. We have just under 2 minutes left for questions, and I'd be Councillor Sokoli, you're first.
Thank you. Hi, Levne.
Hi.
In the slideshow, it references 14, we're short 14 to 16 physicians for our community. Is that just the city of Brantford or the city and the county?
That is just the city of Brantford.
Just the city of Brantford?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what the needs of the county might be?
The needs of the county are also fairly great. I don't have the exact numbers on me, but I know that I don't want to say a number, I don't
That's
know,
fine.
but yes, I can
Just-
send it to you later.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we know what the landscape's changed? So what the doctors want is different from what they used to want 20 years ago. They don't want to be working, I understand, 24 hours a day. They want to work in health teams. Is there anything we can do to facilitate the health team model with, with the pharmacies. Is there anything we can do there to put us a step ahead?
Yeah, I think the best thing that we can do is really create more opportunities for physicians to basically just be able to come in and practice. They don't want to have to worry about the whole idea of running the overall business. So what's really sort of daunting for a new grad is they're finishing school and they now have to figure out, how do I essentially set up a business where I now have to figure out rent, utilities, hire staff, do all those things, figure out the overhead, as well as doing my actual practice. So if we are able to create a lot more opportunities where, we have established teams where there's pharmacies already, we have the staff and everything set up, we know what the overhead is and everything is kind of managed on their behalf, and they can kind of almost plug and play and just come to work every day. That would be something that would really, I think.
And are we communicating that to the community about, your doctor belongs to this team, so you need to go to this, the after hours clinics belong to the teams as well. And if you go to some other clinic, that clinic gets billed over to the other team, and most people don't know those things. And a follow-up question to that before, but my time's running out, has there been?
Yeah, actually,
any
your time
cuts in
has
the
run out.
administration of the fees? Any cuts in administration charges?
Sorry?
Was there been any cuts in the administration fees being allowed by the province to the docs?
Just
Not-
one quick answer.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Thank you for your presentation. We'll be dealing with this very shortly. If you'd like to wait and see the
Okay.
result. I believe it's just to receive. You'll probably be going to estimates and that's where the actual decision will be made. Okay, but we appreciate you coming this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll now consider the items that were separated for discussion purposes. And I believe Councillor Carpenter, you have the motion to put all of those on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Chair, or Chair. Less. I move by
Acting.
myself, second by my ward mate, Councillor Hunt. That all items for consideration consent from 7.1 and 7.2 separated for discussion purposes be approved, and it's now on the floor.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. We will now go to item 7.1.5, which we just had the delegation on. Do I have any speakers? Councillor McCreary.
Thank you, Chair Sluss. Through you to our staff. The process we'll be following to consider the request for the additional funding will be to talk firstly with the Shared Services Committee, Brant for Brant, and then off to estimates. Is that correct, Aaron?
Through the chair, Aaron Wallace, Director of Community Strategies and Family Supports. That's correct, Councillor.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me just say, I'm fully supportive of the additional funding. And I hope that we can manage to find you 6 votes to get that extra money. I can't think of anything that's more important to a family other than a roof over your head, to have somebody you can see when you're sick. And it's a drain on the entire system if there are not enough physicians, family physicians in town to look after a cadre of patients. So thanks again for coming tonight. Good to see you again, and we'll hope to see you back with good news in the new year.
Me, Councillor Sakoli.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And the world of recruiting has really changed in the last little bit. And we're seeing other municipalities like Cambridge just recently made some changes to how they're recruiting. And I just don't think under our current model that we can be competitive with other communities in our recruitment practices. So I'm fully supportive of funding this, but I do think that there's some value in having discussions or more discussions with the county on this. So during our most recent joint services committee with the county, we did add physician recruitment as a priority for both communities and to work together on and hopefully fund and be able to be competitive for both our communities. So I think I would like to refer this report to the Joint Services Committee so that it can be a topic of discussion and get the ball rolling for both communities. So I think if it's appropriate, or do you want me to wait for other?
I have no one in the
speakers?
queue, so go ahead.
Perfect. So I'm going to put on the floor, seeking a seconder, that we refer this to the Joint Services Committee.
Do you have a seconder?
Caputo.
Okay, it's on the floor. Would you like to speak to it, or have you said everything you want to say?
No, I think I've said everything I want to say. I just think having this report go to that committee will get the ball rolling with discussion and perhaps be a vehicle for collaboration. One of our first projects there, I think.
Any speak, Counselor Carpenter?
Yeah, I'm okay with the deferral, but I'd like to have a timeline on it. I mean, if we don't get going anywhere with discussions, I don't want to see us lost.
It's a referral, not a deferral.
So it's referred.
It's referred to the shared services.
Yeah, but when does it come back?
Perhaps, yeah, the CAO can enlighten us.
So through Mr. Chair, Brian Hutchings, CEO, the next shared service committee would go December 4th. And then we could then have it on the committee, of the whole planning administration, I believe, then the next week on the 12th. So it'd be pretty quick.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's not lost. I mean, it may go to that committee. The committee may decide not to deal with it for a couple of months. We could be well into the new year and then the recruitment is lost. So I'd like to, as long as it's coming back and at least it comes to budgets, I'd like to make sure it comes to estimates at some point.
Gotcha. Okay. Further? Oh, sorry. More clarity. Counselor Hunt.
Thank you. And through you to our CAO, who's working on the priority list, which is coming to that committee on the 4th of December. Does this, I'm conscious of staff commitments and workloads and discussions with the county CAO. Does us referring it to the committee make sense from that perspective?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, Councillor Hunt. And in fact, it actually takes a to-do off Aaron's list. I just asked him to fill out when he's going to bring this back to the Shared Services Committee. And if this gets referred there, it's done then. His job's done and goes there, can have a discussion there. It actually works out very efficiently for us.
Any other first-time speakers? No, seeing none. Counselor Sikoli.
Yes, just for information's sake, as vice chair of the Joint Services Committee, I did have a meeting recently with the chair, Councillor Jennifer Kyle from the county, and we did discuss this very topic. We're going to be having a follow-up meeting with both of our CAOs that we're just scheduling for next week. So if anything, referring this to that committee will elevate it up the priority list because it's been referred there, so we have to address it. So I just think through collaboration, we can do something really great. And sometimes two heads are better than one. And I just think there's a lot of value in sending it there and having both communities on the same page and wanting to do the best that we can for all of our residents in both the county and the city. Thank you.
There's a lot of heads there, so I'm sure something will get done. Any further speakers? Seeing none, could you call the question, Mr. Clerk?
The motion to refer the item. Item 715, Community Physician Recruitment 2023 Program and 2024 Action Plan carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those councillors voting in favor, Councillor Vanderborg, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCreary, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sikoli, and Mayor Davis, noting that Councillor Samuel is absent.
Thank you. Okay. That takes us to the next item, 7.1.1, which is the Major Sports Teams Liaison Committee Report. And I believe that's you, Councillor McCreary.
You are correct as usual, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. Excuse me. So I want to thank staff for empowering this committee some time ago to allow us to interact with the owners and operators of some of our major sports teams in Brantford and area. So we've had discussion with a couple of them so far. Councillor Carpenter and I met with the baseball folks. I met with the lacrosse folks, and thanks to May Legg for her support on all this. We've been able to suss out some information that maybe teams weren't cognizant of being able to act on, and it's been very effective for us so far. So and we've looked at a number of improvements, and scheduling is one of them. Physical improvements are another, and thanks to Mr. Cox and Mr. Doucette and Mr. Smith were well on track in terms of progressing through some of these things. So I look for more to come. You'll see in the report that we're getting some staff information back to us for the next meeting with respect to our facilities and our capacity to host not only the teams that we have been fortunate enough to have in our community now, but we'll be looking also at the opportunity to attract perhaps some other major sports teams in the near future. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for that.
Thank you, Councilor McCreary. Any further discussion on this? Councilor Carpenter.
Yeah, one of those opportunities might be a triple C basketball team, for example. London has one and plays in their arena downtown. Hamilton doesn't have one. I understand they don't want one, but there's an opportunity for us to maybe have one. We also have a top-notch basketball facility at the next to the Six Nations Polytechnique. And that's We the North on that facility. Has been upgraded. It is, if you haven't seen it, I encourage everybody on the committee and everybody on council to drop in there and take a look at that facility. You'd be quite impressed what's sitting right in our own community that's available for semi-pro basketball.
Okay. Any further? Seeing none, could we please call the question?
Item 711, major sports teams liaison committee report, carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Ventelborg, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCurry, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sicoli, Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Samuel is absent.
Okay, that's 7.1.2 is the lane closing and conveyance on Lawrence Street, Lyons Ave, Richwood Drive, and Abigail Ave. I believe that was you as well, Councilor McCurry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to staff. The good work, by the way, in unloading some surplus property onto the neighbors next door. Could real estate staff provide us with some idea of what the future holds for number 2 Lyons Ave, a city-owned vacant piece of prime real estate?
Through the chair to the councilor, Ray Petro, manager of real estate. At this point, once the lane closure is completed and the land is conveyed, it's an item that'll be brought to our internal real estate committee to decide.
It would appear to be suitable for a residential building, would it not?
That is correct.
And I wonder if you might enlighten me about the status of other laneways in our beautiful city that could bear transference to the abutting neighbors. And I'm speaking particularly about the laneway which is to the south of Kennedy Street. Are you familiar with that, Mr. Petro?
No, I'm not.
Let me advise you that that may be something you wish to direct your attention to.
Noted, and will do.
Thank you.
Further speakers, Councilor Carpenter?
And Mr. Petro, are you aware that, this land is next to the railway lines and that there are railway restrictions for development and building on the empty lot that Councilor McCurry was just talking about?
Yes, through the chair to Councilor Carpenter, yes, we are aware, and that's why it's going to be brought to real estate committee to discuss.
And they'll look at what the mitigating circumstances would need to be if there's going to be any development on there. Would we also research that, see if there's any ability for the city to use it for affordable housing?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Seeing none, could we please call the question?
Which one?
Item 712, lane crossing on conveyance, carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Ventelborg, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCurry, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sicoli, Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Samuel is absent.
Thank you. 7.1.3, a license agreement for air monitoring station at 324 Grand River Ave. I believe that's Councillor McCurry.
3 in a row.
It's
Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Yes, and through you to staff. I presume this was a pretty good catch that we made, finding out that the province has been freeloading from us for 18 years.
Through the chair to Councilor McCreary, Ray Petro, manager of real estate, yes.
Have you sent them a bill for the 18 years yet, Mr. Petro?
No, we haven't.
You're waiting until this clears council at the end of the month, are you?
Through the chair, that hasn't been discussed in detail.
Okay, there is an opportunity to pursue that though, I guess. Is there? You're gonna have that discussion?
I'll have that discussion with legal, absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Anything further? This item? No, could we call the vote, please?
Item 713, license agreement for air monitoring station, carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councilor Ventilborg, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCrary, Slash, Caputo, Sullivan, Sicoli, Mayor Davis, noting Council.
My deepest appreciation for seeing this bylaw come forward. Councilor Carpenter and I had the opportunity to meet with both Brantford City Police and Mr. Weidrich on June 19th. And at that point, it was a direct result of the concern of a lot of the business owners that are in the industrial area in Ward 4. We were able to get some actual statistics, and from January 1st to the 31st of May, 2023, there were 22 break-and enters in Ward 4, clustered in and around two very distinctive areas. And the number one thing being taken was metal. We had one constituent that actually had the air conditioner taken right off the side of their industrial building and taken to scrapyard. So very pleased to see this come forward. It's certainly very welcomed by the business community in Ward 4, and not speaking for any other wards, but I'm sure the business community as a whole. So at the end of the day, when you're just trying to make a buck, you pay your staff, you do everything you can to turn a profit at the end of the year, to be faced with added expenses as a result of break-and enters that then people are turning their scrap metal over to others is kind of it's really a kick in the gut. So on that basis, again, I want to thank staff, and I certainly hope we get full council support for this.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Carpenter.
Yes, my ward mate covered it quite well. We've had issues where break-ins are happening close to salvage yards, because if you could fit the copper or the brass fittings in your knapsack, it wasn't that far of a walk. So we found that the areas close to some salvage yards, we're seeing an increase in break and enters. And I personally have showed up at those salvage yards and had a conversation with the owners who seem to think it was the police responsibility. What Mr. Weidrich has done here is he's talked to other municipalities and other counterparts about ways that we can do this to make this successful. Even as Councillor Hunt talked about the break-ins in the industrial zone in Ward 4, we would see them end up in a rental facility, so for a storage facility that was rented. And you'd wonder how that would happen. So it was almost like almost like organized crime at that level for breaking in copper, and they actually copper's got such a high value now that they're, as Councilor Hunt said, brand new air conditioners were taken. And in one situation, they actually plugged into the power from the one facility to use their grinders to cut the locks off of the facility using their own power. And as Councilor Hunt and I have been working with Mr. Weidrich, who's doing a tremendous job, by the way, to make this all work. And other communities are going to be asking us what we're doing, and hopefully they'll follow suit, and we'll have a similar process going that surrounds us to deal with these kind of thefts. But Mr. Chair, I wonder if you could, I'll end my speaking time, if we could add Mr. Weidrich to just give an overview so the general population could hear what we're doing here. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also am going to be a huge supporter of this. Great work, Mr. Weidrich. This has been an ongoing issue for a while in most communities, especially in ours. But if just to give you a little bit of heads up, one of the businesses that I was operated in Hamilton, our back facility behind the building was where we stored, where we had our electrical and stuff for that. And an individual broke in there with the intent of taking all the copper piping and electrocuted himself to death. And if you haven't smelled a burning body before, I'm sure that Councillor Martin has, it's horrible. And I think that this is just something that's going to be something that the public needs to understand, and we need to put an end to it. So great work.
Thank you for that. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I also want to commend Mr. Weidrich for what he has done, because not only has he looked at what other municipalities are doing in Ontario, which no one's doing anything like this in Ontario. We're going to be leading the pack here in Ontario because Mr. Weidrich looked at what's being done in Alberta. And in some ways, this is modeled after Alberta. And what it does is three things. One, it prohibits scrap dealers from receiving certain items. It also, for those items that are stolen quite frequently, requires the scrap dealer to notify the police within 24 hours, and also a procedure where there's going to be better identity of those who go to a scrap dealer, because there'll be no cash transactions, and that someone will have to produce their ID, which I think will be a great benefit to the police in terms of dealing with this issue. My question to you, Mr. Weidrich, is on the list of Schedule B, bikes are not included. Should bikes be added to Schedule B?
Through the chair, Dave Weidrich, Director of Byline Security. Mr. Mayor, what I found out in my research was bicycles were not one of the big sought off items for scrapyards. They are stolen, they're used for parts, they're changed out, they're sold. Homeless people, we find all kinds of bikes when we clear encampments that were stolen, but not for scrapyards. So the answer is no.
Okay. Also in your research, you found that Alberta has done this, not individual municipalities, but the provincial government has put in place a Scrap Dealers Licensing Act. Is that something you suggest that we should be advocating for here in Ontario? What would the benefit of these provisions applying across the province, not just to one municipality?
Through the chair, that's correct. We do in Ontario, we do have the Pawnbrokers Act, which is used for a lot of property from break-in enters, but nothing towards salvage yards. And so really the whole idea of this was, how can we turn the Pawnbrokers Act into something for scrap metal? And Alberta had this idea, and this is where we're going to try it this way here in Brantford.
Right. Do I have any time left? Yeah, okay. So we can see the immediate benefit to many businesses, hopefully see immediate benefit to many businesses and homeowners who've had things like air conditioners stolen, copper pipe leading to the air conditioners. Also, I think it will be helpful in respect to addressing the opioid issue, because the revenue that some derive from going to scrap dealers, stealing items and going to scrap dealers, that is part of the financing of the local drug trade. It's all about money, and some of that money does finance the drug trade. So I think this will to some degree put a restriction on that and a control in respect to that source of funding for the drug trade. So I'm hoping it will also have a benefit in respect to the opioid crisis in our community. Restricting the flow of some funds that finance the drug trade, and hopefully lead to more people seeking rehabilitation and treatment and pursuing other options other than stealing scrap. So I support this wholeheartedly, and I very enthusiastically endorse these initiatives that Mr. Weidrich is bringing forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Van Tilburg.
Well, thankfully, most has already been covered by the mayor and other councillors. My question for Dave, when we did the catalytic converters, we had a significant drop in catalytic converter theft shortly after the passing of that. Do you know how many other communities similar to ours followed suit with the same style of bylaw?
Through the chair, no, I didn't check that out, sorry.
No, that's fine, because that leads to the next question. Because your intent here is to have the province follow Alberta's lead and make this a blanket across the province of Ontario, which I think is an excellent idea. It saves us piecemeal community to community type progress. When we do this, are we the first, or are there a few other communities that have taken these items on the prohibited list and the record list?
Through the chair, I went through many municipalities, their licensing, and I did not see another municipality within our comparators that do this.
And that's what I thought, because this will put a stump into it for a little while, and then they go and they mark it elsewhere. So when we pass a bylaw of this nature, do we send that information to other communities to consider? Because I don't think the province is going to get on this right away.
Through the chair, I do belong to a committee of bylaw managers, and we do meet every 1 to 2 months, depending if it's summer or winter. And we always bring up what's new. And so this will be brought up at the next meeting, which will be in December.
That's fantastic. Now, when one of the aspects says that if the dealer sees something that's a restricted item, they're to contact the police. If we have a dealer that is not a good actor, what avenues is it that you have, or you and police have, in order to enforce a bad practice?
Through the chair, as most council know, I have a very good rapport with the police right now. And we will, bylaw, licensing, and police will be working together to go after those scrap dealers not following the rules.
So I want to commend you and thank you for taking this aspect of it up proactively, because you've heard what's been happening throughout the community. This has been pretty significant event happening. Businesses can be crippled by some of the activities that are happening. Just like when you'd wake up and your catalytic converter was gone, you had a very bad day before you went to work. The same with businesses, and the same with people coming home and going to work. When they find out that their property has been affected with the takings of metals. So a lot of people, a lot of residents have asked us to do something with regards to this aspect, and I'm glad to see that happening tonight.
Councillor Martin. You're on mute, Councillor Martin.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Carpenter touched on one aspect of this that hopefully will be helped, and that's air conditioning units. When somebody takes an outside air conditioning unit, they do tens of thousands, or in an industrial situation, $100,000 worth of damage for tens of dollars worth of scrap metal. So it's a huge impact to the victim of this crime, with very little to be gained by the person committing the crime. So it's very important that we deal with this, and I think this resolution does that. And as Councillor Caputo touched on, not all criminals are rocket scientists. I heard a case recently where somebody stole a bunch of cabling to get the copper, only to find out after they'd removed a large chunk of it that it was fiber optics, which has no scrap value whatsoever. So they did, again, probably $100,000 worth of damage and got absolutely no value from it. So hopefully this will help with that kind of situation as well. I'd like to do a friendly amendment to include AMO and FCM in the distribution of this, as well as our MPP, Will Bouma, because if the province doesn't act on this right away, I think municipalities will need to look at this and seriously consider it for their communities, and not just in Ontario, but across Canada. But having other municipalities near us enact this it stops people from collecting scrap metal here and taking it to another community. So I think it's incumbent upon us to inform other people around us of something that we think will work, because we saw it work with the catalytic converter situation. And hopefully we can see others take this up and start to reduce this problem, which is huge damage for little gain for the thief. So if that's considered friendly, I'd like to add the FCM and AMO to the resolution.
I don't believe there's any objection. Seeing none, yes, it's friendly.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further speakers? Councilor McCurry.
Chair, thank you very much, through you to staff. Mr. Weidrich, very innovative, sir. Thank you very much for this. I know it's been a long task for you, and it's a impressive body of work. And I know you've had some positive interactions with scrap metal dealers, but I for one find it inconceivable that one cannot come to the conclusion as a scrap dealer that if somebody brings you metal in a shopping cart, that it's probably stolen. And I invite you to comment on that, although if you choose not to, that's fine too.
Through the chair, I believe the mayor touched on that very well, exactly what the commissioner and I found when we visited the scrap yards.
Absolutely. And we will be proactive in terms of enforcing this by perhaps paying visits surreptitiously.
Through the chair, yes.
Yeah, okay. And you know, I think, I can't recall who it was that talked about bikes being on the list, but you know, regardless the value of the bike, the poor little kid that's had the bike stolen off his front porch is going to pay for that crime until his mom and dad can afford to replace it. And the way costs keep rising in this country, they can't afford to replace it. So I wonder if there's, I gather it's not a prohibition, but still, if somebody turns up at a scrap metal dealer, once this is in place, they'll have to provide their actual identity in order to get paid. By check or by e-transfer, is that the method? And will it be the responsibility of the scrap dealer to report receiving a bicycle?
Through the chair, not by way of this bylaw, no.
Okay. That's something perhaps you can look at as time goes on. Mr. Weidrich, I'd also like to get your opinion on the trade that is carried on in shopping carts. In your opinion, for a vagrant pushing a shopping cart full of goods, is it your opinion that the shopping cart has been stolen or taken without the permission of the owner?
Through the chair, that would appear so, yes.
Okay. So certainly then there's a case that we could make through our police service board representatives of the municipality to begin to require that effective and adequate policing be also applied to the policing of stolen shopping carts.
Through the chair, yes, so baby steps. So we will be working towards that. Like I said before, the rapport with bylaw and licensing and police is really perfect this time. And there's a lot to do.
And what will your encore performance be, sir? You've certainly set a high standard for innovation. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, can we call the question, please?
Item 716, bylaw restrictions for copper and metal theft occurrences carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Ventelborg, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCreary, Slash, Caputo, Sullivan, Secoli, Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Samuel is absent.
Okay, thank you. And item 717, the National Housing Co-Investment Funding for Renovation, Repair and Renewal. That's Mr. Mayor.
It wasn't separated.
Oh, okay, I thought you had. Okay.
Did it once, but we didn't do it tonight.
Oh, okay. My mistake. That brings us down to resolutions. And we have one resolution this evening. And I believe it's Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Carpenter, that section 15.11.6 of the chapter 15 of the City of Brantford Municipal Code to deem the item urgent in order to consider outside the budget process, and section 15.1.22 regarding waiving of donations and or waiving of municipal fees for a special event be waived. Whereas the Hospital for Sick Children, or Sick Kids as most people know it, is the largest center dedicated to improving children's health in the country. And whereas a local 9-year-old Brantford resident attending Notre Dame School is a patient of Sick Kids Hospital. And whereas the resident was diagnosed with heart failure in January and has recently undergone a heart transplant. And whereas the resident is hosting a fun fair at Brandland Community Center to bring awareness and raise money for the Sick Kids Foundation, as they have done so much for her. And whereas Sick Kids Foundation is in support and will be attending the event. And whereas my youngest child is also a sick children's heart surgery survivor. And now therefore be it resolved that the facility fees for the Sick Kids Fun Fair fundraiser up to $1,200 be funded from the Council Priorities Reserve RF 0558. May I speak to this?
No, this is to waive the rules. So first we have to waive the rules. There's no debate on that. We just simply vote.
Okay,
And once that, then you can put it on the floor then and talk.
okay.
Okay. So we can call the question on the waive the rule, please. Yes, you can ask questions on the waive to rules. The appropriateness.
So I'm confused as to why we have to waive the rules. Oh, this is to go to budget, right?
If you don't
So it
wait,
would-
yes.
Okay, never mind.
Okay, we can call the question on to waive the rules, please.
Motion to waive the rules carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Ventilborg, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCurry, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Secoli, Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Samuel is absent.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Sullivan, you can introduce your resolution and you can speak to it now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason why I'm bringing this forward, first of all, is we don't have any programs or benefits that are currently available for somebody to apply to some type of assistance to have something like this done. Maybe it's something city can look at doing in the future. But this little girl actually reached out to me prior to her receiving her heart surgery. So she hadn't even received the transplant when she reached out to do this fun fair for sick kids. Her name is Riley. She actually gave me the right to give her name. And she wants to make a difference. And then this was actually going to come before council sooner, but when she got her heart, it delayed the process a little. She is now out of hospital. She's at home recovering, and she's very anxious to get this put together and to help sick kids who've helped themselves. And like I said, my son is also here because of sick kids, so it kind of hit me right in a good spot when she got a hold of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Carpenter.
I was pleased to second this. I too have a personal history here with sick kids, and hope I can hold this together. My wife's brother, youngest brother, Michael, had a heart transplant a long time ago. And the heart rejected, and Michael didn't make it. He passed away. Again, we had a son, Matthew, who was in Toronto sick kids at 30 days old. Matthew passed away. It would have been during the Susan Ellis Sick Children's Hospital digoxin issue. My wife and I watched those hearings from the beginning to the end. We knew that what was really the cause. Matthew had a heart condition as well. It had a profound effect on me, and the benefit of what a terrific hospital this is, and how lucky we are for Riley to have received a heart transplant in a day when heart transplants are very well. It can work very well. The success rate is very high, and this young girl wants to do something for the community. I can't see us charging her $1,200 to rent one of our facilities so that she can have a fundraising event for sick kids. I think it's just a good notion for us on the eve of the Christmas season coming forward to say, Riley, we support you. A little girl wanting to do this, so we should be supporting her. And so, I do have a personal stake in this.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Are there any further speakers? Councillor McCurry.
Chair Celeste, thank you very much. I commend my friend to my left for bringing this forward tonight. It is compassionate and there's all too little compassion in the world these days. With his blessing, however, I would like to introduce an amendment and I'll try and summarize that, Mr. Chair, if you think it's okay at this time, if you have nobody else in the queue.
One more in the queue.
Okay, the next speaker would like to hear your amendment.
So my amendment would simply be to request of staff a brief report on how the corporation of the city of Brantford can facilitate future requests for items like this. And just very briefly, Mr. Chair, we do empower the Community Foundation to give money on our behalf. And perhaps there's a report we can get which can outline a process whereby these things don't have to come to us and become political.
So are you moving an amendment? It's friendly? Okay. You done?
I can go on for 4 more minutes if you like.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCurry. Councillor Sokoli.
Well, now I'd like some clarity on the amendment. So we're directing staff to create a policy or to report back to us on how we can streamline this with it. Okay. I like that. And I would like to thank Councillor McCurry for bringing that forward because there's the compassion side of this. And then there's like the logical side of this. And there are a lot of people who are in need in our community. And I fear that this might be a slippery slope if we start handpicking one child to support when there's so many individuals within our community who have needs. So I do like the idea of having staff look into this a little bit more to see how we can do this without it becoming political. It shouldn't have to come up here. We shouldn't be handpicking one child to support or one charity to support. I think there has to be a better way to do that. So I'm gonna leave it there for now.
Are there further speakers? Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I also will thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor McCurry, because I agree that the resolution has been brought forward in the best of intent and in a potentially a tragic situation, which sounds like it's had a good outcome. But the issue is, if you look at it on the basis of the organization, and that is we have many requests that come to us where people want to be able to rent an arena or use a park, and it could be for a charitable fundraising event. It could be just an event that's going to be kind of community based and community in nature. And generally the policy of the city has been that if whoever the person is, whatever the group is, they pay a rate for use of our facilities, which generally are set at where we're recuperating about half the cost of running the facility for whatever the event is. And so once you start allowing our facilities, parks, arenas to be used without any charge for a charitable fundraising event or just a charitable event, where do you say yes and where do you say no? Or do you just simply say, if you've got a good idea, you got a good charitable event, or that's a good community-based event, you can use all our facilities for free? I'm not sure we want to do that. And that's the problem. How do you distinguish between those that will receive a fee reduction, those that will be paying the normal fee, and those that won't pay any fee? And thus, I think that's the intent of Councillor McCurry's amendment, is for staff to look at this and maybe look at other municipalities. I'm sure this is nothing new, that other municipalities, I know, in fact, based on prior research that Councillor Toski did, that there are communities that do have a reduction in facility fees for certain purposes. So I'm hoping the outcome of this will be some clarity, both for ourselves as elected officials and also for members of the public to know when there is going to be a fee reduction and why, and when there isn't and why that's the case. So it's all about clarity and transparency. So I'm glad the amendment's here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any further speakers in the chamber? Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, and through you to staff. I suppose the question would be, when Riley plans to have the fun fair, and is our referring or asking staff to come up with a policy, something that's going to be after the supposed event?
Through the chair, Rick Cox, Director of Parks and Recreation, Acting Commissioner of Public Works today. Councillor, I believe the amendment was to go in parallel with the request, but maybe I misheard the amendment. So the report would come back, but it didn't affect the timing of the arrangement for the event.
Okay.
That's the way I understood the amendment.
Okay, so we're, just to clarify then, through the clerk, I guess, then we're,
I think by voting in the affirmative, you're approving this and you're directing staff to make a policy
Okay. All
that
right.
governs this type of event.
I did not want to get this event bogged down in something coming later. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to staff. Is this something that should have gone to the Community Foundation to see if there was funding available from them?
Through you, Chair Sless. I don't believe this particular event falls within the existing criteria for the Community Foundation grant. So I think that a report back would address options regarding whether there's opportunity to expand the criteria there, removing restrictions from our procedural bylaw, and other options as well. So we could address that in a report.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to that report.
Further speakers? Seeing none, I too am glad to hear that there's an amendment, because I was very reluctant to start something going down a hill that I didn't know where it would stop. And hopefully this controls it and puts a system in place where we can deal with these things. And hopefully they don't have to come here. They can be dealt with at the staff level. So I would hope that's what the report will reflect. Having said that, Mr. Clerk, could we please call a vote?
Item 8.1, Sick Kids fundraiser carries on a recorded vote of 10-0. Those voting in favor, Councillor Ventelborg, Carpenter, Hunt, Martin, McCurry, Celeste, Caputo, Sullivan, Sigoli. Mayor Davis, noting Councillor Samuel is absent.
Thank you. That takes us to notices of motion, which there are none. And please note, folks, that the notice of motion deadline for the council agenda is 9 o'clock on the 23rd. Having said that, we are adjourned. Thanks for coming out.